Gene Canty, aye. Okay, Josh, do you want to,
Sure, I will read the opening comments. Curbside leaf pickup will be occurring every Monday, except for next Monday, the 10th, which is Columbus Day. Leaves will be picked up on Tuesday, the 11th, next week instead. Leaves must be in biodegradable bags only, no open barrels, no roots, root balls, or branches larger than 4 inches in diameter. Bags must be out on the curb by 7 a.m. The compost area is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. A 2022 resident sticker is required. Visit nahant.org for a list of accepted material. Recycling for metal, white goods, TVs, computers, etc. is the last Saturday of each month from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon behind the DPW on Flash Road. The 2022 resident sticker is required. Visit nahant.org for information and required fees. The town hall will be closed on Monday the 10th in observance of Columbus Day. Farmers market, there'll be our final farmers market for 2022, I think, October 15th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Flash Road Park. For more information or to become a vendor, visit the farmers market page at nahant.org or email ktaylor@nahant.org. The annual police versus fire charity softball game will be held on Saturday, October 23rd, 2022 at the Lowland softball field starting at 11 a.m. That's a fun event. Encourage folks to go down there and watch that. October 23rd at 11. Textiles and mattress ban effective November 1st. This is banned from your trash. Tony, you want to give us a little background on what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a Massachusetts 2030 solid waste master plan that its goals is to reduce trash disposal statewide by 30% by 2030 and 90% by 2050. To achieve those goals, Mass DEP is expanding their current waste disposal bans to include mattresses and textiles. So the new state rules require that mattresses and textiles be kept out of the trash so that they can be recycled or donated for reuse. Essentially what that means is in the past, when you've been able to do put a mattress or textiles out for collection from waste management, as of November 1st, they will no longer be allowed to accept those items. So we are putting information on our website and talking about a townwide mailing to make sure residents are aware of this. There are mattress collection services available that residents can call for a small fee. They'll come and pick them up. There are some mattress stores have created collection programs where if you buy a mattress from them, they'll take your old mattress for a discount. So there's a lot of information, alternative options out there for folks that we're going to get on the website and maybe do a townwide mailing on or put it into the item, the Lynn item. And that's essentially it. So we'll make sure the information is available on the website, but as of November 1st, you will no longer be able to put those items out for trash collection.
Tony, is it limited to those items? Because I know residents can put out 1 or 2 large bulk items, provided they notify the town. So does that continue?
That still continues. Waste management, you have to contact waste management for that to let them know that you'll be putting an item out. I think there is a small price to that, but that is still going to continue. This is specific to mattresses and textiles. So a couch, a cabinet, those items are not included in this ban currently.
so it's not like there'll be a third pickup on a third truck you'll have to call to get that pickup completed.
If you have to get rid of a mattress, you'll have to call someone on your own to dispose of it, or bring it to a place that you can dispose of it yourself. But it's not included in the waste management curbside collection contract anymore because of the state law.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and finally, town health nurse Deborah Murphy, who provided us great leadership most recently through the COVID crisis, has retired as of October 1st.
Yes, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on this. So Deb, being the head health nurse for so many years, and in the last couple of years throughout the pandemic, has, gone above and beyond for our community. She will still be working with our health department. She's going to transition out of the head nurse role. And there'll be more news to come there. So she'll still be working with us and working for the town, helping out. But, I just wanted to put that on the agenda today to give her a special thank you and shout out. A lot of our, I don't like categorizing it as success because, so many people were lost during the pandemic, and but our town was able to achieve a lot of testing, a lot of vaccine access, the tracking that was done, when someone tested positive was completed in an efficient way and on a personal level, and that's all stems from Deb. So a huge thank you to her on behalf of the residents.
Likewise, thanks so much, Deb. Fantastic, excellent, outstanding job.
We're very, very fortunate to have Deb in the position she was during the time she was. She made a miserable time all the better. So thanks, Deb. I think I got the last senior dose of my flu vaccine from Deb. So the other day. So, thanks, Deb. I appreciate all your work.
Yeah, likewise. And, I already miss having her on these meetings, giving us the lowdown. Luckily, we don't need that anymore, but appreciate all the leadership she showed us.
Okay, new business.
Want to do the motions, Mark? You want me to do the motions? Either, it's fine.
I'll do it. I can do it. Let's see. Declare the 2008 ADDCO monitor trailer as surplus equipment. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to declare the 2008 ADDCO monitor trailer as surplus equipment, and that the equipment be placed on municipal bid for auction per Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, procurement law.
Second. Okay,
Double second.
double second. Discussion?
I can provide some background. This is the digital message board that we typically see at the end of the causeway. If you've noticed the last week or so, there's a new one there. It's white. That's a new purchase for the town. The piece of equipment that we are surplusing was actually purchased by Chief Waters in 2008. It's a 10-year life expectancy for these types of equipment, and the technology that's in the old one is no longer supported and essentially useless. The machine also sustained significant rotting over the years from saltwater air. Chief Dwyer, I know, I can remember many meetings with him talking about, reviving and keeping the old one alive. and he did an outstanding job. But at this point, it's too far gone. So we have a new purchase that allows us. The new purchase is actually pretty cool with the new technology. We're able to, the battery lasts longer. We're able to schedule messages ahead of time instead of, a live hook up to the device and change the message board. We can actually do it from a cloud service and pre-schedule messages to appear on the device. So thank you for your support in this vote to surplus the old one.
Mr. Chairman, if I could at this point, I'm sorry I didn't bring it up in the opening comments, but I was reminded by the background information that Tony had just given about the sign and Chief Waters. I do want to just take a moment of sharing some of my own memories of Chief Waters. Chief Waters passed away recently. He was a town employee, a dedicated public servant for something like 48 or 50 years of his life. And I spent a lot of time with the chief in some very difficult situations during the town. And I can tell you that Chief Waters was one of the most dedicated and professional people I've ever met, and I'm really sorry for his passing. And the town was better off because of all he did for us over the years. So I just want to mention that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could too, I'd like to say thank you to Chief Furlong and his staff for everything they did to make that a unique experience. From coming into the causeway, seeing the display announcing his funeral, and also the number of police officers involved from other communities. It was spectacular. So Tony, if you would, to the chief, please let him know how much we appreciate the effort he put into that.
I will. I've actually already expressed it to him. He spent time with Debbie, Chief's wife, helped with some of those arrangements. He, even down the social media postings of, our condolences on behalf of the entire town and the department. They did a great job honoring his legacy, and I too, I know I didn't know Chief Waters very well. I obviously know Debbie very well, and I know from talking with Mark and other police officers what an impact Chief Waters had, on our town. So of course, yes, I'm thankful for his dedication to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have to have some sort of an award for someone who served in the DPW, the Nahant Fire Department, and the Nahant Police Department. It's a trilogy of success. And
The big
Bill,
three.
yeah, he did them all. So
No, that's great. That's awesome. Josh, any comments?
No, just other than obviously my condolences to Debbie and Chief Waters' family, and well said by you both.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, do you want to continue with the motions?
we're going to take a vote here on this.
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Lobster trap storage leases for the term of 1 year beginning September 1st, 2022 to August 31st, 2023 to the following people: Jim Milady, William Mahoney, and Stephen Scaglione.
Seconded.
Discussion? Any discussion?
We already did it.
Okay, Tony, I have one comment to make. The rules and regulations this year will follow the same as last year, where they will be allowed to take their essential gear and house it inside the traps.
I'm sorry. I was reorganizing my paperwork here. We're talking about lobster trap storage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The same rules apply. So essentially, the only thing that we did differently this year is instead of renewing the lease on January 1st, we now renew the lease on September 1st, which works out great, for both the town and the lobstermen. We, had a discussion with them, got some feedback, and it allows for when their traps are in the water in the summertime, there's less traps at the compost yard. And so it allows us to work better together to ensure that the area is cleaned and maintained well. And, so long as that goes smoothly, leases get renewed. So it's a good, that in and of itself, I think, solves a lot of the concerns that we had in previous years.
great. Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of I. Paycheck as a member of the Cultural Council.
Seconded.
Seconded. Double seconded. Discussion.
So, Tony, maybe you can remind me, is there a cap on the number of, on the Cultural Council Committee, or did someone depart?
So let me see here. Is Diane still on the call?
And was on the call. She is on the call. Her name is on the call.
So when I received this,
I'm on.
hi, Diane.
Hi.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is about the makeup of the Cultural Council. So I was just going to read what you emailed me when we got this request to join by Vi.
Sure.
The Cultural Council is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. There needs to be at least 5 members, but no more than 23. We currently have 5 listed. The appointments are to be staggered for a period of 3 years. No member shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms. And this is governed by Mass General Law, Chapter 10, Section 58. So I think we may have a member that has a member or 2 that has met the no more than 2 consecutive term requirement, but we also have up to 28 seats.
23.
So yeah, we have 23 open opportunities.
That's a lot, Tony. But I appreciate the people who are on the council and the work that they do. Could you maybe it is they authorize the funding of some activities, and that funding I believe comes from the Lottery Commission or something along those lines.
That is
I hate
correct.
to put you on the spot here.
So
I missed some of, I don't know if it's my service or yours, but I missed some of your question.
I missed some of it too, so maybe it's
Well, I'm
on
in the
mine.
woods.
Okay.
I'm in the woods in Maine, so it could definitely be me. So I wanted to know if you could explain a little bit about what the mission of the Cultural Council is. I know they appropriate funds or recommend funding certain activities, And I believe that funding comes from the Lottery Commission. But perhaps you could talk about that, or Diane, maybe you could.
I can, or you can, Tony, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there.
No, there's a number of different sources of funding.
Yeah.
They have a basic appropriation from the state, and then there are earmarked appropriations as well. Some additional funds come through the lottery. Some come through mass development. There's, let's see, a couple different trusts and donations, it seems like. I'm also seeing on the website National Endowment for the Arts.
Right,
So, there's a number of different state and federal funding sources, and then it's distributed amongst the communities based on some sort of formula. They have those funds can be used towards activities of music or art or recreational programs, a number of different activities for our community.
I think in the case of Nahant, the amount of money is like a few $1,000s. Is that, you happen to know that, Diane or Tony? It's not a gigantic amount of money, but
no, the last time I saw anything, it was about $2,000. It is supplied, but
the cultural council will vote to support certain activities, such as some of the concerts at the Ellingwood Chapel and 40 Steps dancers performances and some things like that. So that's typically what they vote to support.
Correct.
Tony, what are some of the things people would be familiar with that they've done in town?
The stuff that Josh just mentioned, the concerts series that they've done, and recently not so much because of COVID. It did take a time off there, but at the Ellingwood Chapel at Green Lawn Cemetery, there's been concert series. There's been different events that have been sponsored by the Cultural Council, like the 40 Steps dance.
Mhm. Great, thank you.
Yeah, so we're still on the discussion. Many people know Vi for her steadfast work on conservation and environmental issues, and as a member of SWIM, it's good to hear she's interested in the arts too. So I certainly support the application.
I'll tell you, I've had the opportunity to work with Vi on a number of issues, and she's a tireless worker. She'll do a great job. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
King Canty, aye.
Okay, moving on. I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the town administrator to begin the eviction process of the tenants currently residing at the Coast Guard housing units located on Castle Road and Goddard Drive.
Seconded.
Discussion.
I'd like to
I just-
discuss
I
that,
just wa-
please.
Well,
Hello, you there?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So, before we take this vote, there are a number of residents on the call that I think, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, and the other members of the board, maybe we ask them if they have anything to say, that we give them that opportunity.
I do.
Yes,
Or-
I'd like
or-
to hear from,
Let me give some background, and Dan will also give some background as well, and then we could open it up to public comment. We gave a little bit of a briefing on this at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. There was a town meeting vote of last year with a recommendation from the Coast Guard Housing Design and Development Committee to divide the lots into 12 individual lots and sell them as individual lots. And to get to that process, we would give the residents a year notice to find alternative housing. And once the properties were vacant, we would pursue removing the underground storage, oil storage tanks, which is for the heating sources in the buildings. Any other hazardous material removal. Eliminate the buildings, the structures, and level the field, level the grass, level the property, and sell them as individual lots. A couple other specifics in that vote as well. That vote was taken in May of 21.
21. Yep.
We gave the first notice of a 1-year notice in September of 21 to all the residents there that by September of 22 that they would need to find new housing. We have gone through, in the meantime, we've gone through a planning board process, putting forth a subdivision plan. We've got to do some work with the federal government as well, working out some property ownership issues. And all that's been completed. And we gave additional notice to the residents at different points up until now. Anyone that hadn't found new housing as of September 1, we gave them another month to October 1 through official notice as well. I'll say that this is it's the will of town meeting vote that we have to see out this action that the town has asked us to pursue. I can tell you that knowing almost everybody in those homes, it's a difficult situation to be in. Certainly understanding, that they've been in Nahant for so many years, and finding housing anywhere in Massachusetts is very difficult right now. So it's been difficult, a difficult situation. We've tried to, speak with them and find alternative housing opportunities, but that's been tough on our end too. I've spoken with the housing authority. There's 9,700 people on the waiting list at the housing authority properties with only 40 something units. And I think they have 1 vacancy right now. I've also reached out to Bass Point Apartments, still doing some follow-up communication there, and just general word of mouth. Any other, I know that there's been many other residents in Nahant that have, voiced their effort to keep an eye out for any type of opportunities that might come around. Since we're at October 5th, I had asked Dan Scripp, our town council, to give me some advice as to what the next step is, to give us some guidance here. He did brief us a little bit on that at the last meeting. Dan, would you mind maybe recapping some of that?
Sure. As you mentioned, we gave the residents a year notice. I think it was more than a year. It was July when we actually sent a letter saying by 2022 September, we need to have these places vacated. And the reason is that town meeting was under the was informed that our loan is coming due. So we owe almost $2 million in 2 years. And to delay this project any further is going to put that in jeopardy. So we were in a situation where we've got to do something. Town meeting approved it. So by the time September 22 came around, there were a bunch of folks that have gone that were no longer there, so that was great. But unfortunately, there were some folks that were there that were having trouble finding a new place. As of now, out of the 12 units, 8 are still occupied. We have strong belief that two of those tenancies are successfully moving soon, if not already, to other locations, and there's one that's sort of pending for a January 1st date. So what we can do at this point is either postpone the eviction process, or we can move forward with the eviction process, which would take the form of going to the housing session in Lynn District Courts and seeking an order of eviction. But before that could ever happen, the tenants would have the opportunity to tell the judge why they think they deserve or have a right to stay in the units. And that from the day one that we file the summons, we can expect that to occur within, I'd say, maybe they have hearings every Thursday. So within 2 or 3 weeks after the service of the summons, which would be about a week or so after we actually file with the court. So at the end of the day, it's probably about a 3 or 4 week process. The intangible is what a judge will do. Given this particular situation, it's not clear what a judge will do, to be quite frank. But so the tenants they can rest in some of these, they will have an opportunity to speak to a judge if and when we go through this process. The other option is to delay it. And again, if we do, we are jeopardizing our position to try to have these properties raised, graded, and ready for sale within the next few months in order to prepare for our balloon payment, which I think is actually 1.8 in 2024.
Dan, if I could, what's the timetable, Tony? What's the timetable for leveling those properties, for getting them ready for sale? When is that expected to begin or end?
So we will have to procure for those services. And that procurement process could take, I would say 30 to 45 days. But the prices that contractors bid to provide that services, they're only required to hold it for a certain amount of time, that price. So we haven't gone through that process yet because there are still folks living in the properties. So we don't have that's about how long it would take to get through the procurement process and then, enter into a contract with the contractor and then get a schedule. But I think we kind of held off on that because we wouldn't be able to get them to hold their bid price. And we can't start, can't start that project until all the homes are vacant. Theoretically, you could start dealing with the ones that are vacant. But any contractor is going to want to do all of this at once.
Yeah, I was thinking about the seasonal aspect of it with winter coming. If there was something we could do reasonably to carry this over until the spring, but it doesn't sound like there is.
Yeah, not
Yes,
without
no.
jeopardizing that payment, Gene, not without really putting ourselves in a bad spot come 2024.
Tony, this is obviously very difficult for you, for town council, and for us too, because we know the families that live there. We grew up with these families. They're friends of ours. We care about them. We want to make sure that that we don't cause any hardship here, but sometimes that can't be avoided. I do have a few questions. First, as you mentioned, this is really dictated by town meeting vote, authorizing the board to dispose of this property in a proper way. is there, and I know the term eviction has sort of some new things to it. Is there anything that we can do as a town to help? I guess now it's going to be about six tenants who will be displaced, and finding them some place to live. I know you mentioned the housing authority, and there's not much opportunity there, but you know, it's a difficult situation. Yeah, and I think we're beginning our housing production plan study soon, and I think, you know, looking at accessory dwellings and those types of things, this just drives home the point that the town really needs something like this to help out people in need. So, is there anything that we can do that could help these tenants out?
Unfortunately, I don't, it's the market for available housing is just so thin. And certainly, I think it's pretty difficult to find a comparable living situation, space, location, affordability. It's hard to find something that's going to match what, the town's been able to provide to these residents for the last 10 or 14 years. So, since whenever 06 or 07 or 05 when it started, or 04. That's why, I'm trying to make some calls over to Fast Point Apartments. Unfortunately, those are all 1 bedrooms. So for families that need more than 1 bedroom, it's not really an option, even if there was a vacancy, if there was an opportunity to move in there. And then actually with the housing authority, the possibility of being evicted or not having a place to live actually provides them a priority up to move up the list. And then they also get a preference from being Nahant residents. But like I said, there's only 48 units under the housing authority, and there's only 1 vacancy right now, and there's 9,700 people on that list. So it's not great. It's not a great outlook. Short of building, affordable housing somewhere in town, there isn't existing housing available.
I should point out, Tony, that there's only 2 residences that qualify under Section 8. The rest are typical residences.
Dan, we talked a little bit today too about the type of eviction notice that we're filing for. So yeah. It's not for non-payment.
Right, exactly.
Which is that?
It's vastly different. If you evict for non-payment of rent, you have a quicker timeline you can follow to get those folks either pay the rent or vacate the premises. Or if you seek an eviction based on non-payment of rent, well, that's a whole different thing. It's a longer process. And I think that puts the folks that are being evicted in a bit of a better position than a non-payment eviction, non-payment rent eviction. So I think one thing we can do is that if it goes to an eviction, it's really not if, it's when, to be quite frank, without being too crass. We can certainly provide letters, I think, in a legal sense to any prospective landlord to say, yes, there was an eviction, but you can understand the situation. We have no issues with these tenants. We just had to vacate the property, pursue the town meeting a vote. So that might help, allay any sort of concerns that a subsequent landlord might have for the folks that remain.
Dan, I appreciate if you could sort of draft something that the board could look at a letter that we can provide the tenants.
Sure.
They can use in the future. Like you said, these tenants are good tenants. They're good people, and I hate to see this happen. It's not because of non-payment or they were bad tenants. They're good tenants, and they're good residents and they're good townies. Anything we can do to help them along the way, I would appreciate it. It's a sad time, so.
Is there anything the housing authority can do or has done or needs to do to help this situation?
I have the executive director's contact info that I can share with the residents at the Coast Guard housing. I would say, and reaching out to her and making sure that, if you don't have an application in, that you put one in, and she can help make sure that it's up to date and filled out properly. And if you have an application in, she can review that with you and make sure that you've checked all the boxes that are going to help you move up the list, and make sure that everything that needs to be filled in is filled in. But their process is pretty regulated. They have certain requirements that they have to meet, being a quasi of the state. So we'll make sure we include that contact info in whatever letter that Dan's going to put together.
Please do. I think Mark's 100% correct, obviously. And we need to do anything and everything we can to help these folks out.
I mean, it's a very difficult situation, as we all have acknowledged. And, I think we also have to acknowledge that it can't go on indefinitely. So, I mean, I guess what I like to do is make a public plea to anybody that has an apartment or anybody that knows of someone that's going to have an apartment available. This is an urgent situation. And so, we could help connect people with apartments, or if you know someone that might have an apartment become available, they could get in touch with Tony, and Tony could make the connections with the residents. It is an urgent situation. So please, anybody in town or even nearby that has an apartment that is available now or will be very shortly, please let us know, and we'll try to help make those connections.
And I just want to restate that, we're looking at 8 to 6 tenants now that are experiencing housing issues and housing needs in this town. Our housing needs and our housing issues are bigger than that. We need to address it. I made a commitment when I ran for selectman that I would look at that issue. I plan on doing that. We're setting up a committee within the next week or so. We're doing a housing production plan. We need to address the housing needs and issues in this town because they are lacking, and they're only going to get worse. And it's unfortunate that these 8 or 6 tenants are on the forefront of it. And I'm so sorry.
So true. Thanks, Mark. Okay, we have a motion.
Before we get to the motion, there's a couple residents that might want to speak on this issue.
Yes.
Can
So
I
just
speak?
please- Yes, please just announce your name and address.
My name is Or Bilius. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Debbie Bilius. She is 1 Goddard Drive. I just wanted to kind of give you an update to her situation. We have secured her an apartment at Bass Point, signed the lease. She has a moving date of November 1st. The only thing that is holding her back right now is obviously the November 1st date, and they want a security deposit of $1,985. My mom is on Section 8. She's low income. She's disabled, and we've applied for raft. We've been selling things to try to come up with the money. We've gone above and beyond to try to come up with the funds. Right now, raft is our only option, and we're just desperately hoping that they will help with part or all of it so that she can just move. At this point, she's living out of boxes and sleeping on a couch. If she can go today, she would. So for her, it's not finding a housing issue, it's finding the funds to move issue. Even with the date that you gave her, even if she saved the entire year, I mean, she still wouldn't be able to come up with almost $2,000. And honest to God, that's cheap compared to some of the other apartments we found. I mean, we looked at Breakwater and it was way more than that. I mean, they wanted $500 just to process an application. So as far as my mother's concerned, I'm just asking for just a little bit more time. Not much, just so that this raft application can finally get put through and we can just move her along. I can't control funds. If I could drop $2,000 out of the air.
Aura, I have your number. I'll reach out to you tomorrow and we can, talk more about that funding and timing issue.
Okay.
And we'll obviously try and do whatever we can to help. I think that, Dan, Dan kind of laid out some of the timeline of this process. It's not a quick turnaround.
Yeah, we would never get an order before November 1st. So if November 1st is a strong date, then you have nothing to worry about.
Oh, no, it's a definite. It just, as long as we come up with the 1,985, it's hers.
Okay.
I already filled out all the paperwork. I've done it. She's good to move.
I might,
See that I come up with this money.
on some of those things, our state delegation might be available to help, process things like that in a quicker way. And I can help, make that connection. So why don't I give you a call tomorrow, Aura, and with Dan, and we'll try to help.
Tony, could you make a contact to Bass Point just to reconfirm what is being said so that they do hold that apartment?
Yeah, yes.
Great, thank you.
And Tony,
Very much, Tony, and I appreciate your time.
if I don't know if there's security deposits in place that could be released earlier, even an abatement of a 1 month rent, that could help out. I'm sure you'll figure this out and communicate with the tenants and try to help them any way you can.
Excellent.
Right.
Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak? Tony?
I don't see, if anyone else wants to speak, just, unmute. You can just click on the corner of your screen.
Hi, hello.
Yes.
This is Sylvia from the Item Live, the Daily Item. Hi, I just want to know about the whole reason for this, for the moving thing.
Sylvia, I can connect with you tomorrow as well, and give you some background on that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Do you mind shooting me an email with your contact info? It's abarletta@nahant.org.
Can you spell that again?
Yep, abarletta@nahant.org.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone
Sue, I see Sue unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name's Sue Alessi, and I live at 3 Goddard Drive. And I've lived here for over 10 years, so it was not a short-term rental. And I have been looking since I got the first letter for somewhere to live. And believe me, it is stressful. It is an everyday job. I wish I could buy, but I'm not in the position to be able to buy. I'm not in the position to have to pay $29,000, $35,000, $3,500 for to rent a 2-bedroom apartment or house, along with just to move, you're talking well over $10,000. It's first, last, security. So the cash issue for all of us that are still here is very real, very big. And it's not for lack of trying, because that's all we do. And you're talking going to places and seeing what is available that would be livable and safe and affordable. So that's where we are as far as the tenants that are left still living in our homes, because these are homes. I mean, we pay the water bills, we pay the trash fees, we pay, all the utilities. And I just want to speak up on our behalf to say that we are trying to find somewhere. We are not holding out or refusing to leave. Oh, thank you.
So I just want to say that, the term eviction is a bad term in many people's mind, and you're not being convicted because you're a bad tenant. You're not being convicted
No.
because you're paying rent. You're not being convicted for any other reason other than, this is what the town meeting had voted to do.
Right. I realize that. I had talked to Tony about this, the fact that once the eviction starts in court, it goes right onto our record, which is going to make it harder and prevent us from getting places, because the people renting, that's what they're looking at right away. And they sometimes don't go further to in the application to see that, you're a good tenant. They'll see eviction and then you're shunned.
Well, you will get a letter from the Board of Selectmen saying you are a good tenant and you are deserving of a good place to live.
And Dan had spoke to that a little bit, Sue. There's two different types of eviction process. One is for non-payment and one is not for non-payment. And we're choosing,
Right.
We're going through the latter. So it shouldn't have as negative of a, or any negative mark on your future opportunity.
Yeah. And, I'm dealing with bone on bone in my right hip. I have to have surgery. I can't do it because of this. And I'm going to, just to move alone is going to be like massive.
Tony, what if we put out some sort of a letter to some of the local realtors and see if they can't hunt down some apartment space? I know it's not something realtors like to deal with, but it would be a great idea and a great service if they could do it.
Absolutely. I like that idea. All right. Let me see. Bubba.
Hi, sorry. This is Heather Goodwin.
Hi.
I live at 22 Breezy Hill Terrace. And I just wanted to make a comment today because I've been following the Coast Guard housing for the many years that I've lived across the street from it, and my heart really goes out to these people. They're my neighbors. I know Sue, who just spoke personally, and for me to see what's happening to them, it's heart-wrenching to me as a community member. I was vocal about what I was hoping could happen to those properties, and a vote's a vote, but I would like to volunteer for this committee that you speak about, because I just feel like Nahant's at a crossroads here. Like, I've lived here my whole life. Personally, we just took my father out of Nahant, a lifelong resident. His father lived here as well, and there was no place for him to go. The Bass Point apartment is great to downsize for many, but it's expensive and it's outdated, and it's really not good for the elderly or seniors. And he got priced out of Nahant. And, I'd love to see this town come together and look to our future and do the right thing for the people who build this community, for why I love it and other people my age love it, and why my children love it. Like, I don't want to see this happening to me someday, having to move away from the ocean, having to move away from the beaches because I can't climb up my stairs anymore. There's so much that's involved in like building a good community, and I feel like celebrating our elders and helping one another is a huge part of it. I am so happy to see this conversation happening, where you're reaching out to these people or they're reaching out to you to ask for help, and I hope they get the help they deserve, because to leave this beautiful place for the unknown, it's just excruciating. We've been through it. So, if you do put a committee together, I'd love to give you my input and I'd love to be part of it. So put me on that list if you so choose. And I have ideas about zoning as well, because I feel like that's connected to it. As a small business owner, like, I would love to see changes happen that we can celebrate our past and then, be a leader moving forward into our future in Nahant. We're the smallest community in Massachusetts, and I'd love to see the people look to us to see what we do and when we do it right, because we're not special. Like, so many communities are going through this very same thing. But it takes a lot of hard work to figure out what we want our future to look like. So I'd like to be part of that if you would so allow, and just say I'm really, sorry to my neighbors and the people that I've known since I've lived on Breezy Hill, that they have to go through such troubling times.
Well spoken.
Thanks, Jean.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Stay on the line.
Okay, thank
later
you
in
all.
Later in the meeting, I'm gonna give a little update on where we are with the housing production plan and that stuff.
Thank you, Tony.
We have any other participants?
Yep.
Hi, this is Carrie Collins, 22 Breezy Hill Terrace. I'm Heather's sister, and I just want to say the same thing pretty much, but also add that with the elderly, watching my dad leave Nahant was one of the worst things I've had to go through. I also was very vocal at the Coast Guard housing meetings for the 9-10 years they had them, and this plan just feels blah, for us. And I know you have to keep going with it, but in the future, I really think like zoning and tiny houses and being able to have like elderly have small pieces of property. If you couldn't split up this one to make it viable for the elderly, there just has to be a plan for what's left in this town. I see a lot of huge houses coming up. And I think to be able to like, build a studio, build a granny pod, have like a small in-law apartment in your house is an important plan. And that really goes towards zoning too. So it's all connected, like Heather said, and I want to see like affordable housing and elderly being able to be here forever. I want to be here forever, and it's getting, the prices are getting crazy. So just keep it in mind for like, your parents, your kids, their kids. Like we don't want to lose it, to the largest bidder. And that's what's going to happen to those properties. It's going to be $1 million houses. And I just hope those people care as much as us old townies. I have nothing else to say, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie and Heather, the current situation, it is heart-wrenching for sure. And, but, your points about the needs for affordable housing and for elderly housing in Nahant, that's something, obviously this board and Tony recognize. And that's why we've been working towards this goal, starting with, getting funding approved at town meeting, and the subsequent efforts. Tony's going to give a recap during his town administrator's report, but there are efforts that have been going on towards that. It's overdue, but I'm proud that this board is, taking that overdue action. Mark's leading the effort for the board, working hand in hand with Tony. So, please hang on till the end of the meeting if you can, and listen to Tony's overview on that topic for affordable housing and elderly housing.
Yeah, I one of the things I spoke about with Sue is, and it's not a great answer, but the fact that we are working on this housing production plan, and that we have new multi-family zoning requirements that we have to adhere to from being an MBTA community, and we have affordability requirements under Chapter 40B. These are things that we're looking into, and we might not be able to provide that solution today because we're not through that process, and there isn't, those types of living spaces available today, but they might be in the next few years. So, even maybe, I would love to welcome, if in the unfortunate situation, the current residents at the Coast Guard housing can't find housing in Nahant, soon, I would love to be able to welcome them back in the future.
Right. Oh, okay, do we have any other participants?
No, we can move to the vote.
Okay, what do we want to do with this motion? Given the feedback we just got, what we've been talking about, do we
I'm
really
ready to
want to
vote.
move? Pardon?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Before we call the vote, before we call the vote, this is to begin the eviction process. And I know, Tony, you talked about giving it a little more time. What if we table this for at least 2 meetings from now so that we give these folks a chance to get out there? People listening to what we talked about tonight, maybe some apartments will come up. Something to delay
I
this.
think, before, I think maybe Dan can reiterate, the timeline process of, and, if this is if you vote to initiate the process tonight, what we're looking at
Yeah,
for a timeline of that process.
yeah, let's do that.
Dan, you unmute Dan.
Tomorrow, I would go to Lynn District Court and get the summonses that we need to fill out and give to our constable, who would then serve the tenants probably early next week. And then we would return what they call return of service to the court, and the court would schedule a hearing, and the hearing would be held. My best guess, based on the court schedule, is that I would expect a court hearing between 3 and 4 weeks from today. Now, what the judge does at that hearing is anyone's guess. It's reasonable to think a judge might give them 30 more days. And that would occur no matter what we do tonight. If you guys decide to wait 2 more meetings, then I think we're just extending the process, to be quite frank. But your question is a timeline. I would suggest that starting today, about 3 to 4 weeks before we get a determination from the court.
So on the outside, what are we looking at for a time frame? Adding that up. 2
I don't
months,
understand.
a month?
I don't understand your question, Gene. Okay, if we vote today to go forward with the eviction process, I would
Yeah.
expect a judge to have a decision within 3 to 4 weeks from today.
But
And that decision could be, you have to be out the next day, or that decision could be, I'm giving you 30 more days. It could be anything, to be quite frank.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. So it could go extend itself for 60 days.
I could, absolutely, yeah.
And would we have the option of saying, like, if it's a situation like Mrs. Billius where she has something coming up within 2 weeks, we could hold off on executing
Yes, absolutely,
the eviction notice?
yep, absolutely.
In other words, we're not mandated to say, the day that judge authorizes it to, say, get out tomorrow necessarily.
Right, no, the court would definitely.
If there's some, plan, if there's some plan in place, if.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
we've got to squeeze as much out of this as we can. But my question now is, do we continue on with the motion as seconded? Or is there any changes to that motion that we need to make?
not based on the discussion we've had so far. We could act consistent with the vote.
It sounds like, given the timeline and the flexibility that we would have, should the eviction notice be approved by the judge, that pushing the vote out 2 weeks, our vote out 2 weeks or a month, doesn't necessarily change the outcome. It's sort of my impression, based on, if we get the notice approved and someone says, oh, I have this apartment lined up, but I can't move in for 30 days.
So, Mr. Chair, here's what I suggest. Make a vote on this motion and then make a second motion saying that directing the town administrator to come back to the Board of Selectmen once executions are in hand, but before they're actually acted upon.
Okay. All right, so a roll call vote on the motion on the floor.
Josh Entrum, aye.
Michael and I.
Gene Canty, aye. Now,
So now-
Dan, are we going to make that motion
Yeah,
now?
consistent with tonight's discussion, Mr. Chair, I recommend a motion that directs the town administrator to return to the selectmen once judgments have been attained, but before they're executed, regarding the Coast Guard housing evictions.
So
You can
moved.
say so move, there you go.
Seconded. No further
Do I have a second?
discussion? Yep, we have the second discussion, roll call vote.
Josh Entrum, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. Okay. Moving right along. Mark, you want to
Okay,
keep this?
I'm starting to fade out a little. Yeah, I will. Josh, you might have to pick up.
Okay, yeah,
Internet
yep.
is fading here and there, so
Okay, this is a vote on the general
the
election.
General election.
warrant. Yep. I move that, yeah, I move that the Board of Selectmen execute the warrant for the general election to take place on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Nahant Town Hall, 334 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. 01908.
Second,
seconded.
roll call vote. Discussion, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on this? No discussion, roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Another motion related to voting. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the early voting hours for the general election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, as presented by the town clerk and as posted on the town clerk page at nahat.org.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Tony, do you have the schedule available to share on the screen? Or Diane?
I do. The schedule, the early voting begins on Saturday, October 22nd. It will be from 9 to 1. And then the following, it's open for 2 weeks. We will not be doing early voting on Sunday or Mondays, but from Tuesday 10:25 through Friday 10:28, it will be from 9 to 12:30. And then again on Saturday, the 29th, we're open. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Tony. 9 to 1. And then that 29th is the last day that you are eligible to register to vote for this upcoming election. And so we'll be open 9 to 5 if anyone needs to register to vote. If you're not sure if you're registered to vote, you can either call me or call my office and speak with myself or my assistant Carol. Or you can go on to mass.gov and go to voting, and there's a whole page there, and there's a section where you can check to see if you're registered to vote. And then the final week would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, November 1st through the 4th, 9 a.m. to 12:30. And then the polls are open the following Tuesday, November 8th. Anyone who's going to be absent, which there is a difference between early voting, anyone can vote for early voting, but if you're going to be absent, you do have one extra day. That would be Monday, the 7th. You can come in and actually vote if you're not going to be available or you're not going to be in town on the 8th until noontime on November 7th. And these are all, that's state regulated.
And where would people vote on these early voting days?
They vote in the same place. They come in the side door where the handicap ramp is, will be set up outside my office. And then the polling boxes will be inside the main hall, but we ask you to please come in and out the entrance near the handicap ramp by the town clerk's office.
Okay, any further discussion? Thank you, Diane.
Just to add one more thing, I've had a few people call as far as we just received all the ballots to mail out yesterday, and those should be going out. Whoever has already requested a mail-in ballot, those should be going out Friday and then again on Monday. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Okay, another voting related motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a Nahant police officer detail for the general election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 at the Nahant Hall, 334 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. 01908 from 6:30 a.m. until final votes have been counted and tallied.
Seconded.
Seconded, any discussion?
No.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Okay, the next motion, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a one-day all alcohol liquor license to the American Legion Post 215, 96 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. On Saturday, October 23rd, 2022, from 12 o'clock PM to 5 o'clock PM for the Sip and Shop event.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Just a brief comment on this. I talked with Tony about it last week. And it seems with the number of events that the Legion is coming up with, wouldn't it be, or I guess that they've already been asked to get a license approval, wouldn't it be to everybody's benefit to do that? Give them a liquor license?
I see Bob Fields on the call with us. I'm sure he'd be happy to respond to that.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from sunny Phoenix.
That's
So
cool. That's just cool.
Life
The
is good.
magic of Zoom. Yeah, well, it's beautiful out there, but I'm in the convention center working a show. So, Gene, we are going through the process. So you will see that soon. We've been talking, we have to dot the I's and cross the T's, but trust me, as much as I love coming before you and giving you updates, we definitely want to move beyond that. And we will be engaged with Steve Smith, who'll be helping us out, and you should see that. I keep saying hopefully by the end of the month. I just don't know which month, but certainly we'll get that done and in time for next year. These are the last two requests that we would have for one-day licenses this year. The Sip and Shop is for an auxiliary fundraiser. Certainly would invite the community to come down. We actually have filled out the boat room, a tent, and almost the entire garage for artisans and vendors for you to come down. And the liquor license is, of course, to support the Sip portion of the shop.
Yeah, I think it would just make life easier for everybody. That's great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Antrim,
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. There's another vote to approve a one-day liquor license. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a one-day all alcohol liquor license to the American Legion Post 215, 96 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. On Friday, November 11, 2022, from 12 to 9 p.m. for the Veterans Day celebration. Second,
Seconded.
roll call vote.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. Josh, you with us?
We do. I'll take this one, Jane. I
Okay.
move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve event requests for the American Legion Post 215 Veterans Day services at Veterans Park on Friday, November 11th, 2022, starting at 11 a.m.
Seconded.
sorry about that. My internet dropped momentarily.
Okay, roll call vote. This is Josh, this is on the approval for the Veterans Day Park.
Yep, okay. Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
So if I could just say a few words. I mean, certainly we hope the town, you know, yourself comes out for the Veterans Day service down at the park on Friday, November 11th at 11 a.m. We will be honoring the nation's and our community veterans. I'd also like to point out that we actually have 2 brand new veterans in Nahant, and my computer just went into sleep mode, but we welcomed home Tyler Gallagher this past weekend. He was discharged from the U.S. Navy. And then we also have Jason Blydell. I'm not sure when he was officially discharged, but he's a U.S. Marine who lives in town here as well. So we have 2 new veterans. So if you see them around, welcome them home. And before I jump off, I'd just like to, kind of make a final quick report on the Humpernickel Road Race. We appreciate your support and all of the department's support and the community support. We couldn't put this race on without all of you. And I would like to announce that the self-proclaimed fastest man in Nahant, Mike Cullinan, won the overall race this year. And so I guess he's a chip off the old block. Apologies, Mark, for calling you an old block. But congratulations to Mike and winning this year's Humpernickel Road Race. So thank you all very much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, he is better short distance and middle distance, but not the long distance. The old man still has long distance.
Yeah, he's going for that sub-3, I heard.
Yeah. Well, he's already has sub-3. So he has to get a little lower than that.
All right. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. We have one last one here. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from June 29, 2022, July 14, 2022, and July 20, 2022.
Seconded.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye. Okay, ongoing business. What do we have out there for ongoing business?
See if I had anything I wanted to mention. So Tony and Mark, do you want to talk about the affordable housing efforts now, or as part of the town administrator report?
We can do it now. So it's certainly ongoing business.
Yep.
This week, I signed the housing production plan contract with MAPC, which we received funding through the CPC committee at last year's town meeting. So we just signed the contract with them to help us produce our housing plan. I will soon be getting another contract from MAPC for their assistance to for us to adhere to the Chapter 3A MBTA zoning requirements, the multifamily requirements. That will be funded through an Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs planning grant. And I also signed a contract with Stantec this week for them to do a preliminary GLAM analysis. So every town is required to have affordable housing available in their community. And there's there's 2 ways to meet that requirement. Either you have 10% of your housing stock is affordable, or 1.5% of your land area, developable land area, is dedicated to affordable housing. We know that we don't meet the 10% housing unit number. We have
Currently at 3%, right, Tony?
Yeah, it's about I think it's 1,365 housing units, and we have I think 47 affordable, and we need to be at You know,
113, I think.
136, right? 136. So, yeah, it's probably about 3%, right? We don't know where we are with the glam requirements. So, you know, knowing that we have this zoning requirement upon us because we're an MBTA community and that we're going to have to do some multifamily zoning, we'd like to use that opportunity to also meet our affordability requirements under Chapter 40B. And so understanding where we are today is the first step, you know, important step there. So the glam analysis is going to tell us where we are in meeting that threshold. And that will, you know, even if our glam analysis came back and said that we do meet the 1.5%, as Mark and all of you mentioned earlier in the call, we have significant housing needs in this town that we're still going to pursue a housing plan to try to accomplish those things. Mark and I met with a few of the gentlemen from MAPC last week. I told them I would not sign a contract with them unless they came to Nahant and ate our food and walked our streets and met our people. So they came, we had lunch at Tides. I drove them around town. We stopped, got out of the truck, you know, walked around the properties, you know, the parks, the open spaces, looked at the different neighborhoods and, you know, the types of homes, the density, spoke to residents, and, you know, they got a great feel for the community. And after that meeting, they said they were very glad that they came out and met with Mark and I and did that tour, because they felt like they had a much better understanding of our town. The next step is to develop an advisory committee that's going to help usher this housing production plan from start to finish. Any part of this plan is, you know, it's likely going to impact zoning, in which case it's going to be presented to the town at a town meeting vote. But this committee would help usher that process through and bring perspective from a number of different areas. I'm going to put together a recommendation of you know, who should be featured on the committee. Certainly, you know, not being a member of the committee doesn't limit people from being part of the process. Everything that committee does is going to be in a public, transparent process. So even if you're not on the committee, I encourage you to take part in those meetings. My suggestion is that you have, you know, a member of the Board of Selectmen, somebody from the Planning Board, Finance Committee, Housing Authority, someone from the school, Council on Aging, you know, a number of different, all those different areas that this housing plan is going to have some impact on. This is probably, you know, this is one of those topics that spreads over the entire community, and is going to need input from a number of different perspectives. So that's the next step, is to hopefully we are convening the advisory committee in the next, you know, 2, maybe 3 weeks. So quick turnaround, but we got a lot of work to do. So
Excellent. How was lunch?
that? Oh, sorry, Gene.
I said, how was lunch?
Tides does an excellent job.
Go ahead,
I
George.
was just going to say, thanks for the overview. You know, this has been the law for 14 years, and I'm pleased that that this board and you, Tony, with the support of the town, meeting both, funding the studies, is, facing up to the requirements of the law, and, for the reasons of compassion that we spoke about earlier, doing something to help, build the affordable housing stock and elderly housing stock. And the third reason is that there's something that's referred to as unfriendly 40B housing development, and that is a development that is not required to meet the zoning laws of Nahant. And I think it's important to preserving the character of that we avoid that situation where we're faced with a 40B, unfriendly 40B development. So for those three reasons, I'm grateful that this effort's being undertaken.
Mark,
Any,
add
go ahead.
anything?
Pardon?
I was just asking Mark if I missed anything from our meeting.
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Tony. This is an opportunity for the town to face the fact that we have a housing problem. As Josh mentioned, I think we can maintain the quality and the livability of our town, and also address our housing needs at the same time. And I look forward to participating in this committee and engaging town meeting on this.
Excellent. Josh, ongoing business?
I think Josh may have lost his internet connection again.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out, Tony. I know we've talked about it, but I think we owe.
I don't have.
You with us?
Yeah, I'm gonna move closer to my router. See if that helps.
You're probably living in a big house.
All right. This one looks like. Okay, I think this should work. Right next to the router.
Do you have anything you want to add to the ongoing business?
No, but this is really more under town administrator report, but I'm gonna blurt it out now in case I forget. Tony, the sewer pipes on the Linway. There's still some plastic pipes out there. They're removing some. Can you give us a quick update on that?
So my 2-week progress meeting that usually occurs tomorrow got rescheduled to Tuesday of next week. So I don't have, any update from our last meeting other than, my understanding is that they are continuing with the deconstruction process, demobilization process. They've completed all the underground work, the manholes. We are officially on the underground sewer pipe that's been relined. The next couple pieces of the project is restoration of the construction areas, and air release manhole needs to be reconstructed at the bottom of Little Nahant Road and Nahant Road, and then installation of a bypass at Ward Road to prepare us for the Ward Road pump station project.
Okay, great. So any large holes in the Linway are not associated with our sewer system anymore.
Well, they're gonna do a if they haven't done the paving patchwork yet, that's gonna be done before the end of the paving season. And then after you go through a winter season and the trenches settle, we have to go back in the spring and do a full pavement restoration.
Yeah, so sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. So there's a large pit, sort of near, I think it was like sort of in front of the clock tower building with steel plates over it and so on. That's not our hole, right?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'll double check. It might be National Grid, could be
Yeah.
Lynn Water Sewer.
Yeah, but our sewage is flowing through the pipes underground, and it looks like they're, I don't know, halfway, let's say, done removing all the plastic pipes.
Yes.
All right, I just wanted to blurt that out while I thought of it.
Okay, Tony, I'll try this again. A popular subject, coyotes. I've been asked by several people, in fact, in a restaurant the other night, what we were doing, and I told them we're working on it. And they wanted me to be more specific, and I said, I really can't. I said, we're working on it, and I would just like you to support me in that, if you would.
Yeah. I never thought that, the coyote issue would take up so much of my day to day, but there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not dealing with a coyote issue or following up on a coyote issue or, working with either a member of the Board of Selectmen, legal counsel, Mass Wildlife, our animal control officer, and our state delegation. We're still stuck in this situation of being authorized to attempt to dispatch a problem animal or two. The unfortunate truth is the tools that we're giving to attempt to dispatch the one or two problem animals that we may have are unsafe and inefficient. Those two tools are a police officer or an environmental police officer could shoot a coyote, which unloading a firearm in the dense neighborhoods of Nahant is not really ideal. Certainly our police have been authorized that if they have a safe situation where they can identify their target and there's no public health concern in the near area, they can attempt to try to shoot a coyote. Unfortunately, that opportunity is, to present itself will be very slim chance. Trapping, we've reached out to a number of PACs or PACs, problem animal control officers, about trapping. Most of them, if not all of them, don't do it because it's so ineffective. As I've said in the past, according to Mass Wildlife, only 3 coyotes have been trapped in those types of traps that are authorized in the last decade across the entire state. So they're extremely ineffective, and the byproduct of it is you need to bait the trap, so you end up creating more problem animals by feeding coyotes. If you do catch one in that situation, you're then shooting it. I've seen, just from talking to people and seeing social media, relocating coyotes is not an option. Mass Wildlife was very clear about that. When you have a problem animal, when you have an animal that meets the threshold of needing to be moved out of a community, you are not allowed to move it to someone else's community. That animal will die. You have to shoot that animal and dispatch it properly. So there is no relocation opportunity available. That being said, we're working with the legislators to maybe change the legislation, change the law and introduce legislation for the upcoming session that would provide us effective, safe tools when we do encounter a problem or habituated animal. And we continue to work on that. I know that our state delegation has met with other communities that have a similar problem, their state legislators, and they've met with MAPC to talk about that sort of thing. And we're going to just continue to push that and look at all other potential solutions or creative ideas of how to potentially cull the population of coyotes in Nahant, because it's a legitimate public safety issue identified by Mass Wildlife.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
Next time, invite me to dinner, Gene, and I'll take the question live.
I was going to say, I wish you were with me. I had another point to make, and not a point to make, but another issue to discuss, and that is, they had an article in the Lynn item on Swampscott's water rate and the tier 3 program that they have. Apparently they have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But the one thing that caught my attention is they put in there, and people have asked me about it, they put in there that our water rate was $24 and theirs was $17. And I know that isn't or can't be right.
I'm going to speak to water sewer rates in my town administrator report.
Oh, yes, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not
so-
sure. Yeah, I saw that. It didn't really cite the source as to where it came from. And I'm looking at it right now. In a chart provided by Luddy, the rate after increase is still in the moderate rank among the MWRA community, with Nahant standing the highest on the chart with $24. But our water rate is $9.93. So per 100 cubic feet. So I'm not sure where that number came from, but that's not our water rate.
No, a bit excessive. Okay, do you want to go right into the town administrator's report? Oh, Mark, do you have anything else?
No, nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a comment under the preserving East Point topic.
Please.
So I just wanted to mention, there've been some news articles and even some social media posts that are, I would term them misleading, regarding the decision made during about the Article 97 case. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago, right after the decision by the judge, but since then, there has been some media posts that I would term a bit misleading. The Lynn item article from about a week and a half ago implied that the decision in the Article 97 case means Northeastern can proceed with development in the Natural Resource Area East Point. That is not true. That is false. I don't blame the item. I think they're probably writing what they were told, but in my opinion, the information provided to the news media was intended to discourage the public. And as we announced a couple weeks ago, that decision by the judge was disappointing, but it does not alter the situation much. Again, as we mentioned a couple weeks ago, this board stands firmly with the vast majority of Nahant residents and remains 100% committed to preserving as conservation land the 12.5 acres atop and east of the Murphy Battery. I just want to remind folks that this is not a fight against Northeastern, but this is a fight, an effort for the conservation protections in our town. we, all of us in the town, need to do what we can to protect Nahant's limited open space and natural resource areas. And, while East Point property gets most of the public attention, we're making improvements and investing in our open spaces all over town. This board, this town administrator, our DPW, and the voters of Nahant, through their funding, are making improvements and investing in all our open spaces, the softball fields. Many people have probably seen the work done over the Fort Ruckman Bailey's Hill area, improvements at Library Park, and so on. The open spaces in Nahant, in my opinion, look better than any time that I can remember. And a lot of credit to the DPW for that fact. But the whole town leadership and employees, value our open spaces. And along that subject, I'm very pleased to announce that just yesterday, Nahant's open space and recreation plan was formally approved by the state's Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. This allows us to apply for Department of Conservation Services grants through May of 2029. And this is the first approved open space and recreation plan that has been approved since 2008. So big thanks to the Open Space and Recreation Committee for completing this effort. So in summary, the recent decision on the Article 97 case, while not the outcome we hope for, certainly does not mean that our natural resource areas will be developed and should not be cause for discouragement. We're committed to protecting these areas at East Point and all over Nahant. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
George.
Thanks, Josh. Well said. Maybe the board can at some point put a statement together that we can publicize on that.
Great idea. Great idea. And just to let people know that the eminent domain isn't impacted at all by the recent decision on the Article 97. Is that true?
That is true, and it's a really important thing for the public to understand, and the media, for that matter.
Excellent. Town administrator. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Hey, you
just
mind?
want to. I just want to reiterate that, the town's interest in East Point is to preserve and protect the open space. It's not to deny development by Northeastern or any of those types of things. We are opposed to, development on areas that we feel should be preserved and protected.
Thank you. That's more than true. Tony,
Yes.
Mr. Town Administrator, do you have anything else?
So I want to jump to water sewer rates real quick. There's been a lot of discussion about, the water sewer trash bills that just went out. And, the bottom line number. A lot of that is due to the fact that we typically have in the past, we've charged trash in mid-July or end of July. And this year, we actually combined it with the first water sewer bill of this fiscal year. This graph here shows you the rates of our water and sewer rates, orange being sewer, blue being water. As you can see, you get billed 3 times a year, 3 times a fiscal year. So usually it's sometime in, a reading in September, bill due in October, a reading in January, bill due in February, and then a reading in April, bill due in May. So you can see here the change in rates. We've pretty much stayed steady. Our rate in water is at $9.93. A lot of that recent 3 fiscal years, the reason of that flat is because of the leak detection work that we've done. So a lot of these rates are dictated by your previous year water usage. So if you have major leaks in your system and you use a ton of water, then your overall rate is going to increase in a future fiscal year. So by staying ahead of that leak detection process, we're able to capture any major leaks, fix them before we have some major spike in water usage. And on the sewer side, Lynn Water Sewer Treatment Plant was under an administrative consent order. They were changing operational hands, so negotiating a new contract. The rate skyrocketed in a sense in fiscal year 22 because they were going through that process of finding a new O&M contract, operation and maintenance. And so we actually had to come up with an estimated amount. However, during fiscal year 22, they finalized that negotiation and the final contract price was less than what was estimated to us. So we were able to reduce that sewer rate by the third billing cycle. And we reduced it and didn't increase it at all going into this fiscal year. So your rates haven't changed at all, really, from your last bill to this bill. If anything, you've noticed a significant decrease in your sewer rate. However, September bills on water sewer tend to be higher in amount because it's after the 3 months of the summer. And this past summer, with the drought that we experienced, volume of use of water certainly increased significantly. So usually this bill tends to be, your highest water sewer bill of the year. So combine that with the trash rate. Combine that by adding the trash rate. Our trash rate since in 2017, actually 2016 to 2019, it was $345 for a single family home. In 2020, it went up to $351. In 2021, it went to $360, and in 2022, it went up to $380. So for the last, 7 years, it's only increased $35. I understand that's still an impact. We have one thing that we have the luxury of in Nahant is you're allowed to throw out as much trash as you want. There's no limit on how much waste you put on the curb. And a lot of other communities have either kept trash rates down by limiting how much you can put on the curb and removing trash barrels from public open spaces and developing carry in, carry out policies. We don't do that in Nahant. We provide those trash barrels. Our DPW handles a lot of that cleanup effort, and we use waste management to dispose of that trash. So all of that's factored into that rate. So next year we're working in our treasurer collector's office to install some new posting processes and tools, and so hopefully by next year we'll go back to separating the trash from the water sewer bill in that first payment of the new fiscal year. So I just wanted to provide some clarity, provide some background on why the bills were, the bottom line number seemed way, way higher. Your rates have not increased drastically. Usage certainly was high in the last 3 months on water. And trash has gone up a little bit over the last few years. But mostly it's a timing thing of combining those three utility bills into one bill instead of two separate.
Tony, how's that trash bill set up? Is it by household?
Yeah, it's well, it's by unit, housing unit. By housing unit. So a two-family gets charged as a two-family versus a single family.
Okay, no, just curious. I've been asked that question.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions for Tony. First is more of a comment. I would encourage that people who don't have second meters to get second meters for the outside watering use. I know that, as Tony mentioned, water bill may seem higher. At this point, because of the summer use, people are trying to water the flowers and grass and those types of things. If you're watering your grass and your flowers off your primary meter, then you're being charged for sewage also. If you put a second meter in, you do not get charged for sewage. You only get charged for water. I think about a quarter of the town doesn't have second meters. So I would encourage people to get a second meter. Then go to the town hall, talk to Mary Lowe, arrange that, have a second meter put in, particularly if you're doing a lot of gardening and landscaping, watering during the year. So I would encourage that. Secondly, Tony, where are we at in terms of the sort of telemetry of water meters? I know at one point we used to send people out and you were one of them, actually read water meters, go to each house with a device and capture the data for billing. We changed that a number of years ago so that we can read the meters remotely, and we're almost at a point at one point where we could do it almost instantaneously, so that residents could actually log on and in real time see what your water usage they're using. And I was wondering where we're at on that, because I think it's really important. People could have a leak in their toilet or their faucet, not realizing it, and drip, drip, drip can add up to a lot of money. And if people could get online and actually see the usage in real time, that could be a help. So are we looking into that at all?
Yeah, we started looking into it a lot this past budget season when we were talking a lot about water sewer rates and actually talking about a potential tiered system like the news article that Gene mentioned earlier that Swampscott's proposing. That's still on the table for us. Those meters that the meters that you put in, I want to say about 10 years ago now.
Well, I retired in 2012, so probably
okay.
longer than that.
Okay, so they're definitely getting to the more every time we do a reading cycle for a new billing cycle, more and more of those meters are not transmitting to the truck and the device as we drive by. So, the meters are fine as far as getting a record of how much water is being used, but the data isn't transmitting as good. And so we're certainly getting to a point where that side of it needs to be updated. I think I'd love to have it right now, today, tomorrow. We're not desperate to upgrade our system, but we're a year or two away. And with the developments of 5G and this new technology, I think it'll time up perfectly that in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years, we should really be looking into, a funding mechanism and purchasing and reinstalling some new meters up there. It would also allow us to, if we got an alert, these new systems will actually give you a warning if you have abnormal usage. So if your toilet breaks while you're in Florida and there's still nobody's supposed to be in the house and water's being used, you would get an alert on that system. So it also provides some security for homeowners as well.
And I think it's very important. The technology is definitely there. A lot of communities are utilizing it today. There are alarm systems on it that residents could sign up for. If there's water going through your meter at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a reason for that. You either have a leak, something's wrong, something's broken, that brings it to your attention. You can get in touch with the town and say, listen, I'm showing water going through my meter at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It shouldn't happen. You can check your toilets and that type of stuff, but I think it'd be helpful for residents. So I'm glad you're looking into that. My last question in terms of water and sewer is billing cycle. As you said, we do 3 times a year. I know in the past that the treasurer collectors always used to balk at like increasing that billing because 90% of payments came in through checks or cash back 20, 30 years ago. Now 80 to 90% of our payments are coming through electronically. And I'm wondering if it's time now to take a look at our billing cycle. It either quarterly or every month. It's not an extra load, I don't think, on the treasurer collector in terms of receipts. And it could help the residents because what happens is if you get a bill, water and sewer bill 3 times a year, you miss one, then you're really backed up. And then the second one, you owe over $1,000 or more, and it becomes more difficult. And plus, the cash flow into our receipts in the town would help in terms of our interest in getting more money in on a regular basis. So I'm wondering if we can take a look at increasing our billing at some point, our billing periods at some point. Utilities do it. They do it for a reason because if you bill once a month, if you miss a month, okay, you can catch up. If you miss 3 or 4 months, that's going to be tough. So I think the reason that utility companies do every month is because it's less of a burden on the customers, and maybe that's something we can look into.
I definitely agree with you in concept. I don't think we're there yet. I think we could get there though. We just hired a new collector. I have a ton of faith in his ability to make some improvements in our processing, like I mentioned earlier, and getting a lockbox for the town, and finding other ways to make processing payments more efficient. At the end of the day, there's only 2 people in that office, and so it does have a large impact in our day-to-day when those bills come due. I don't know. I don't know if 80% are electronic. It certainly doesn't seem like that.
No, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
There's still a lot of people pay by check. But a lockbox would do the posting for you. It would process the checks faster. People would have to get used to sending a bill to, an address that isn't Nahant, which would be a little weird at first, but once we get that stuff in place, then we can consider adding more, cycles of processing. Right now, I don't think we're ready for it, but where it's definitely something that it's at the top of the priority list. With this, with the new treasure collector and what we're trying to accomplish here. So,
One of the reasons for maybe people more reluctant on paying online is because there's a charge to pay online, either through your credit card company or through the town's payment system. So that's something we could probably look at, because if someone looks at a bill and says, "Oh, I can pay by check and it's not going to cost me anything," they're going to pay by check. Otherwise, it's going to cost me $10.
The current setup, I agree, but that's something that we've talked about. The current setup, I think it's a percentage base for the customer.
Right.
So if it's a big bill, it's a big fee.
Right.
Maybe we could negotiate something with the electronic service where if the town covers it, it's a flat fee for every transaction or something. Maybe, or we can negotiate that on behalf of the residents, but certainly something that we're going to try and look into. Another thing we talked about was, the bank in Nahant. A lot of people in Nahant use the bank right there in Nahant. Could we come up with some sort of system or process where if you get a bill from the town, you could just go to the bank with the bill and say, "Pay this for me," and transfer this into the town's account. And then they could process it for us and give us a report at the end of the day of who, paid what for what. And that might be a more comfortable, easy way for people to do things. We also talked about, the lockbox. We talked about just like if you went to a convenience store and swiped your credit card for a bag of groceries, having that availability in the town hall too, So we're looking at every possible way to bring these processes up to the, modern day technology, which is going to allow us to process quicker, have, I hate getting calls from residents saying they sent a check in and it still hasn't passed through their account. I understand how that affects someone. So, getting a way to get those payments processed quicker so it's not lingering out there. That's step one. And then once we get into a rhythm there and get better at it, we could bill more often. We could talk about that with trash rates. We could talk about that with real estate as well. So there's a number of different things we can do, but we got to get there first.
Okay.
I really like the idea of eliminating or controlling the fee for paying electronically. I would think that saves effort at town hall. You don't have a desk drawer full of checks that you got to cash and log in and all that stuff. Not intimately familiar with that process, but I'm sure there's an effort involved, right? Whereas if it's electronic, you just you're unburdening town hall.
True.
Yeah, it eliminates a step in a multi-step process. But yeah, if it's a 10% charge and it's your real estate bill,
yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to pay $45 to process a payment to the town.
Yeah, 10% on a real estate bill is probably a lot more than $45 too.
Well, just as an example,
Yeah. Anyway, it sounds like we're all on the same page here, but yeah.
Hey, just a couple of house cleaning items. Did we complete the sign review?
Yes, the study.
Yeah,
Yes, yep, that's completed. Next, we don't have the funding in place to move forward on the action items yet, but the study is complete. And we have a 3-year capital plan as one of the deliverables from that.
okay. How about street striping? Crosswalks, double lines, single.
We do that. We do crosswalks every year. We repaint crosswalks every year. The DPW does that, and then our striping happens with the paving work.
So any of the areas that aren't going to be paved won't get striped, just community questions.
Yeah, I guess it's, if we had the funding, we could potentially stripe a street if it really needed it. But if it really needs it, it probably really needs to be paved. So you might as well wait until the paving is done.
Exactly. And lastly, for me anyhow, we got a letter from David Aldrich thanking us for letting them proceed with the pickleball courts over on the tennis courts on Flash Road. Said it's been a huge success. They've been averaging, particularly on the weekends, 15 to 20 people a day. And that those people are finding people waiting to play. So they're working the time slots out themselves, but really happy that we let them go ahead with it.
Yeah, it's good to see
Anything
people in the
else?
park.
Pardon?
I just said it's good to see people using the new facilities,
Yeah.
regardless of what they're,
Yeah,
regardless of what they're playing.
exactly. How about Citizens Forum, Tony?
Just before we get to citizens forum, just a couple quick other things. Dubois and King, the company that the consultants that are doing the lowland drainage study, sent me their final report this week. I haven't had a chance to review it yet. So soon we'll be doing a neighborhood meeting with lowlands community to brief them on that. I'm trying to schedule a neighborhood meeting with the Little Nahant group for the playground equipment for early next week. We signed our contract with CZM for the grant that we received for 40 Steps Beach design, the coastal bank, the design of that. We received the qualitative portion of bids for the coastal engineering RFP. We're evaluating those right now. I'm also going to be meeting with Doors Whittier, which is a contractor who is going to help us with the Council on Aging kitchen project next week. And today I met with Contract, who's helping us with the fiber project, which is connecting all of our public buildings with fiber cable. That project hopefully will be completed in November, December.
Hey,
Tony?
do we have any, do we have any candidates for the conservation opening?
Not that I know of. Not that I
It-
know of, but we do have a vacancy. So if anyone's interested, you can go onto nahant.org and look up the Conservation Commission and get familiar with, what their role and responsibility is. And if you're interested, send a letter of interest with your resume or cover letter or just an email to myself at abarletta@nahant.org and Kristen Taylor, K Taylor, Taylor @nahant.org.
Is Kristen still functioning on there? On the conservation?
No, Kristen's no longer a Nahant resident. She is now, we hired her as our conservation agent. So she helps them, helps them out, helps the commission out, but no longer is an active member of the commission.
Great, thank you.
Tony, one last question. What construction is going on at the Rotary? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know. I think I think it has to do with a fiber, some sort of like network cable of some sort. That we got,
Like a
we got-
transatlantic type thing?
I think so. Do you remember we got asked for comments on their
Yeah.
EIR, on their environmental impact report, like many, many months back? I'll have to I can find out. I can ask
Yeah,
DCR.
it seems pretty major, actually.
Oh, two other quick things. Emergency management, our guys over at emergency management are doing great work. They've been going to a number of different trainings, conferences, getting us ready to go for, this winter season. Our Humvee has been re-wrapped, so it's got a nice new look on it. It's finally got official decals on it. Thanks to Linway Auto, we were actually today donated a new pickup truck for emergency management that will soon be re-decaled. And we signed contracts this week with a drone company that's going to come in and do a coastal footage of our public properties to, create a baseline map of sediment and know what the impacts of any potential future storms are. So it helps us with funding through FEMA in the future. So shout out to our emergency management department for all the good work that they're doing. We are, in light of Hurricane Ian, it's definitely on the front of our minds and getting prepared for, the winter season. Hopefully we don't have any issues like that here, but we are looking ahead.
Very good, thank you for the update.
All right, any citizen forum, any citizens that want to speak during citizens forum, just raise your hand or unmute yourself and announce your name and address.
Nobody?
Doesn't look like it.
Going. Gone. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Before that, Mr. Chairman, Tony, we have an executive session meeting tomorrow. Is that correct?
No, our executive session meeting is going to be after our tax classification hearing, Wednesday, a week from tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
We weren't able to get everyone for tomorrow, so we're going to do that on the 12th. We'll do
Okay.
it after the tax classification hearing.
Thanks for
That's good.
catching that, Mark.
Mhm.
Okay, motion for adjournment?
We went from Nahant to Maine to Phoenix tonight.
Who's in Phoenix?
Bob Fields.
Oh, there you go.
Right, yeah.
All right, my battery's about to die, so I move that the Board of Selectmen adjourn.
Seconded.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Not gonna lie.
Gene Canty, aye. Thanks, guys.